Well, two further issues loom large at the end of this broadcasting week, although I have already alluded to one and I'll amplify those comments shortly. But the whole world is in shock at the raid on Donald Trump's Florida home. This will be the subject of intense scrutiny in order to seek the background to and reasons for such a raid. It has already emerged that the federal judge who reportedly signed off on the warrant had donated money to Obama's presidential campaign and to the Obama Victory Fund. And that same judge represented employees of the late convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein in connection with sex trafficking investigations. It's now clear the FBI sent roughly 24 agents and technicians to Trump's Florida resort to carry out a search warrant, reportedly over classified documents the former president may have taken with him from the White House in January 2021. I should point out here, though, that even if they're classified documents, you'd have all of these FBI nobodies poring over them. How's that for security? Anyway, there are many who say that if they were in search of classified documents, this could have easily been achieved through legal negotiations. And the question is asked, how is it that Hillary Clinton used bleach to destroy a hard drive that included classified documents, but there were no raids on her home, no prosecution? It's a matter of fact that Hillary Clinton used a private email server to conduct official state business, with more than 2,000 of them classified by the State Department, and she later deleted about 33,000 emails before government officials could investigate them. Raided? No. As things stand today, on what is known in political terms, these heavy-handed tactics are backfiring badly with American voters. Now, the other issue of importance I have alluded to, it's closer to home. ADH, as you know, offers you a splendid program on Friday night at 8 p.m. Tomorrow night, Nick Cater's Battleground. In fact, Nick Cater will be joining Fred Paul tonight after 9 p.m. But today, I heaved a sigh of relief that it's now no longer left to Matt Canavan, Terry McCrann and me to raise the lunacy of what has been shoved down our throats in relation to these net zero emissions. Nick Cater has today written in The Australian an extraordinary piece. It is, I have to say, one of the finest and most comprehensive analyses of the Bowen and Albanese folly. He refers firstly to the rolled gold promise of a $275 reduction in the average family's annual power bill, which he rightly argues, quote, the incurious press pack, incurious indeed. They just swallowed what they were told without analysis, because Bowen assured everybody it was backed by extensive modelling, which we'd never seen. Where were the media analysing it? Nowhere. As Nick Cater says, 7 months later, the modelling has become unstuck. And in spite of endless invitations from the opposition to repeat the 275 promise, the Prime Minister has declined. But as Nick Cater writes today, Labor has pushed on with the 43% emissions reduction by 2030 into legislation. Writes Nick Cater, Bowen's pugnacious manner and conceited answers in question time have failed to dispel the impression that he's out of his depth and the Prime Minister has bitten off more than he can chew. Then this, and I quote, for those who understand the economic and engineering challenges of weather-dependent energy, there is an impending sense of disaster as the Albanese government steams ahead on a rigid course. Locking in a target, come hell or high water, will accelerate the closure of coal-fired plants for which there is no viable alternative, unquote. Then listen to this, which I have raised 1,000 times, but thankfully Nick Cater is now as well. Quote, hitting the magic net zero emissions goal in 2050 will require 30 times more storage capacity and 5 times as much rooftop solar. Grid capacity must expand by 80% and we'll need a 9-fold increase in grid-scale wind and solar, unquote. Now, picture this. Solar panels and wind turbines everywhere. Farmland littered with them. Now, we're not just talking about solar panels on the roof of your home. I mean, there are farms in Australia, which I have seen, for miles and miles and miles, agricultural land gone, and there are solar panels. Writes Nick Cater, the social and environmental costs of broadacre renewable farming have barely been considered. They will transform the landscape around towns such as Bendigo, Dubbo, Inverell, Gladstone or Rockhampton in designated renewable energy zones. Untold swathes of farmland will be covered in solar panels with an estimated lifespan of 25 years. What happens next or after that, nobody knows. But as Nick Cater says, the extra 28 gigawatts of grid-scale renewable energy the Australian Energy Market Operator says we'll need by 2030 requires commandeering hundreds of square kilometres of land. To reach the net zero 2050 target with 50% solar, just solar, would require an area the size of Canberra. Unquote. The point is this, and it's a simple one. If Peter Dutton can shut up the bedwetters, this is the path to victory, unlikely path to an unlikely victory in 2025. The Greens, the Teals and Labor can be wiped out because, as we are saying, this emissions nonsense has disaster written all over it. We've seen it in Europe. It will arrive here. The Dutton opposition need to get aboard the political train which says disaster down the track.